Hi everyone, this is Himanshu, CEO PharmaShots. We are here yet with another episode of Pharma CXO Talk, where we speak to the C-suits, the leadership of various companies every month. And this month we have Dr. Ali Jannati from Linus Health. He is the director of Cognitive Science Medical Affairs, and he has spared out his time from his busy schedule to talk to us. So thank you so much, Dr. Ali, for taking out time and talking to us. He's going to walk us through Linus Health, what about the genesis of the company, and a lot of information. So it is going to be a very interesting conversation. So I am looking forward to it. Let's see who all are looking forward to it. So without further ado, first of all, welcome, Dr. Ali. And now, before I start with a lot of formal questions and technicalities and all that, I would I as a audience and plus my audience would love to know a little bit more about Dr. Janati. What has been your career journey or your likes, dislike, how you spend your time, anything which you can share with us.
Thank you so much, Himanshu, and thank you to everyone who will be watching and listening. I'm Ali Jannati, as you mentioned. I have a background as a physician. I trained overseas, finished medical school. During medical school, I was involved in different aspects of neuropsychology, neuroscience, and cognitive science research. I did basic research in mice and rats in neuropharmacology. I did some research in neurogenetics, all the way to involvement in randomized clinical trials where we investigated some new treatments for neurological patients. After finishing medical school, I continued my line of interest in brain and investigating how the brain function happens and how brain health is achieved by doing postdoctoral fellowships at Harvard Medical School. There, my research was mostly focused on neurophysiological biomarkers of brain function in neurological and psychiatric populations, both in adults and then also in pediatric populations. First at Beth Israel Deaconess Medical Center, and then followed that at Boston Children's Hospital. Both hospitals are affiliated with Harvard Medical School. The conditions that I investigated, and I did both clinical and research work, involved patients with autism spectrum disorder, Alzheimer's disease, depression, post-stroke pain, and pre-neurosurgical brain mapping in refractory epilepsy. Around 3.5 years ago, I decided to follow that line of work, but instead of using neurophysiological biomarkers, I switched to investigating digital biomarkers of brain health. And that choice was inspired by learning more about Linus Health, which was founded in 2019. And since then, I have been at Linus, and I'm really enjoying the great scale and impact of our work on hundreds of thousands of patients every year.
Awesome. So you touched upon a very interesting topic, and this is a topic of my interest as well, which is digital biomarkers. So can you tell our audience, maybe educate them like a layman who doesn't know what are digital biomarkers and what are their importance. So can you just give us a bit background on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we are looking at in terms of evaluating brain function is not just the outcome of a certain task, but the process by which an individual, really the brain behind that individual, goes through the process of achieving a task. That task can be a cognitive assessment, or it can be filling out a questionnaire, or it can even be passively looking at visual stimuli on the screen. What digital biomarkers enable us to do is looking at subtle aspects of that process, which was pioneered by Dr. Edith Kaplan and Dr. Geschwind at the Boston VA Medical Center, which has been has been known as the Boston process approach, is using digital capture of those subtle differences and subtle nuances and imperfections and um, latencies and different aspects of task completion to gain insights into how that individual brain is working and how those digital metrics compare to the general population, people who are not exhibiting any um, cognitive mood or motor problems. And what digital biomarkers enable us to do is um, scalability, but also evaluating multiple aspects or domains of brain function within a very short amount of time in a validated way, in an objective way, without subjective scoring, without, to some extent, inter-rater variability that can affect the assessment. And that has really important implications, both for clinical and research purposes. And I'll be happy to dive into more details if we have time.
Great. So thank you so much. Now, would love to know more about Linus Health because while you are in the introduction, you spoke about that. So can you highlight or tell us about the company's journey from its genesis, how it started, what was the idea behind starting the Linus Health, and anything which you can add to it would be a great information for us.
Absolutely. So Linus Health was founded in 2019. It was based on a very lucky meeting between our two co-founders, Dr. David Bates, our CEO, who is a scientist, investor, and entrepreneur, and our chief medical officer, Dr. Alvaro Pascal-Leone, who is a world-renowned Harvard neurologist. And their paths crossed at an event in 2018, and they quickly discovered that they have a common interest in brain health, but also they really believed in the critical need for a fundamental shift in terms of how we think about detecting and treating cognitive disorders and how we can have more personalized interventions to change the clinical outcome of patients. And one of the most important aspects of impetus for founding Linus was we need to have a more proactive approach to detecting, diagnosing, and treating cognitive disorders. So we do not want to wait until there are symptoms and complaints and functional impairments or disabilities. By that time, it's often quite late. What Dr. Pascal-Leone usually refers to is the pit stop model. So in car racing, they don't wait for tires to go out or stop working before they change tires. Similarly, for other aspects of preventive repair, essentially, in the car, so that it can maintain that rapid race. The equivalent of that in terms of cognitive health is that we need to have that routine evaluation at scale that is widely deployed in healthcare systems, in private practices, so that the earliest stages of cognitive impairment are detected way before, sometimes 5, 10, 15 years before salient symptoms of cognitive function are exhibited, and they can impair with the patient's activities of daily living. And that allows us a much longer runway. So when we detect those early symptoms, it allows us to have a much greater opportunity to intervene, whether with pharmacological interventions or with lifestyle interventions or with medical device, brain stimulation, etc. And that was really the main motivation for David and Alvaro to found Linus.
Thank you for that great introduction. Now, I was going through I was doing my own due diligence about the company and reading about it. So came across a very recent press release which was talking about, if I'm not wrong, approximately 140, 145 peer-reviewed articles published and presentations So it's a big number. If you talk about research papers and even presentations combined also, it's still a big number. So what are those publications? Can you talk about them? Because again, it's really difficult to comprehend that, 140 plus is a very big number. So I'm stuck with that basically.
Yeah, absolutely. And I should say that number only pertains to the Linus era, which started from 2019, but our digital tools have even longer history. So if we count the publications that point to the validity of Linus tools, it might actually go beyond 120 just peer-reviewed publications, let alone kind of scientific presentations. But since 2019, as you mentioned, we have had 72 peer-reviewed papers and more than 75 scientific presentations at academic conferences. Because Linus Health platform has so many different assessments, and we have also acquired several companies in the past few years, that number encompasses a lot of different domains and aspects and assessments and different aspects of evaluating the brain function. Some of them are focused on our most classic, the first digital assessment that we have, which was the DCT clock, which has been validated for many, many years. In fact, the clock drawing test has been studied for several decades. But then some of them are more focused on our core cognitive evaluation, which consists of our digital clock and recall and life and health questionnaire. But many of them are focused on our other assessments, our digital trail making test, our digital speech hearing screener, our suite of vital signs, which are voice and speech-based assessment developed by the Oral Analytics, or A2, that we acquired recently, as well as the suite of our gait and balance assessments. So you can see that we are not just focusing on Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, but really across the different aspects of
Yeah, gotcha.
cognitive and motor impairment. We have publications that speak to the validity and the sensitivity and accuracy of our tools.
This might sound a bit of a kiddish question because again, there's a small kid inside me of a researcher basically. So which paper or which part of the research is something which excites you at a personal level, I would say. Any research paper in particular which is you think it's the best one or the noteworthy one.
Yeah, so I want to highlight something that we have published as a conference poster, and it is
Mhm.
currently under review, and I value it as one of our most impactful findings, which is multimodal assessment of cognitive function, which also allows us to predict the AD related burden or pathology in the brain. So we have now evidence, which is currently under review, and again, we have presented it at several academic conferences with the same 3-minute test of DCR, or digital clock and recall. We are able to do way more than just detecting cognitive impairment. We can in fact predict, if you put that individual right now in the PET scanner, what is the likelihood of that patient having a positive beta amyloid scan or burden in their brain. And that's really powerful because we are tapping into a multiplex process. Essentially, we are running multiple machine learning engines or modules at the same time during those 3 minutes, looking at different subset of metrics that speak to not just cognitive impairment, but they can also detect what is going on in terms of pathology in the brain of that individual. And those individuals can be now prioritized for blood-based biomarker testing, PET scans, which are very expensive. And you don't want to conduct those tests, whether blood test or PET scan or CSF testing, just across the board without any prioritization. So that excites me the most because it is the most scalable. It is our in-person clinic. It can be done routinely, but it also for clinical purposes, but it can also help the pharma and other research companies really target their enrollment towards patients who are most likely to meet more than one criterion. In fact, most of the criteria for an eventual diagnosis, and that really streamlines the investigation into Alzheimer's disease and related dementias treatment.
So Dr. Janati, are you talking about the same paper which is being expected to be presented at ADPD in Vienna? Is that the same paper which you're talking about?
That publication is from on a different data set. It is from the
Okay.
study called BioHermes 1, which was organized by the Global Alzheimer's Platform. It has more than 900 patients. It's a multi-study, multi-site, diverse population.
Okay. So can you talk about little bit about that presentation, if it is okay, because you're going to present it at I think next week basically. I think ADPD is in Vienna from 1st of April, I guess.
That's
So
right.
I think you're going to present there next week. So can you talk a bit more about that presentation also, if that is okay?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm presenting two posters at
Okay.
ADPD. One is focusing on the utility of our DCT clock to detect cognitive and motor impairment, as well as drawing tremor in patients with Parkinson's disease and essential tremor. And the other one, which I will pivot to shortly, it's focusing on our remote or in-clinic person that we call DAC, or Digital Assessment of Cognition, which is a 7 to 8 minute battery. So focusing on the first poster, we are presenting evidence that the DCT clock score, which summarizes the patient's performance within a 2-minute test that consists of a command clock, so drawing a clock face from memory, or a copy clock, which is drawing the clock from a template, but extracting those moment-to-moment metrics, whether it is the speeds of drawing, the latencies, the pauses, the component placement in terms of location of the digits, angle of the hands, and all the time-based metrics that you can imagine, sampled at 120 hertz or more, that can allow us to do multiple things in the PD space and movement disorder space in general. One is differentiating between presence or absence of cognitive impairment. So PD patients who are uh, independently validated to have some sort of cognitive impairment versus PD patients who are not cognitively impaired, we can see that the DDC clock metrics successfully differentiate between those two populations. And then delving into more granular differentiation within the PD patients that may be candidates for surgical intervention versus non-surgical. So there are two kind of main workflows that patients with Parkinson's disease are faced with. Some of them just go through their routine cognitive follow-up. It means that their main clinical scenario or symptoms were dominated by their motor impairment. There was not a major concern about their cognitive health. The other branch is combination of both. So Parkinson's disease patients can very much have cognitive impairment as well as motor impairment. And again, we find that the DCT metrics and composite scales can differentiate between those two. And finally, we are showing strong evidence that one of the subscales of DCT clock, called the oscillatory motion score, achieves excellent performance. So area under the curve of 90.94, meaning 94% accuracy, validated against the ratings of 3 movement disorder specialists. It can detect drawing tremor in patients with essential tremor. And that really speaks to the utility of, in this case, just a 2-minute test, which is scored almost immediately, to capture cognitive impairment, classify it in terms of its phenotype, but also detect that motor aspects of Parkinson's disease, which is tremor, as well as in essential tremor. The other poster that I'm presenting, which we are very excited about as well, is a clinical validation of our DAC, or Digital Assessment of Cognition. It consists of 3 different tests: a 6-word verbal learning test, a 1-minute animal fluency, and a backward digital span test. So 3 trials of 5-digit backward digital span test. But what we are doing there is, again, looking at those process-based metrics. Everything is captured automatically, digitally, and analyzed automatically and objectively. And what we are reporting in that poster is that when you look at the cognitive classification based on our 7 to 8 minute battery versus a 3-hour comprehensive neuropsychological evaluation that is, as you can imagine, quite labor intensive. It's not scalable. Not everyone has access to. It requires years and decades of training on the part of the neuropsychologists to achieve that level of accuracy. When we look at the agreement or concordance between these two cognitive classifications, we have over 90% accuracy. So we have on the order of 95% accuracy for detecting dementia, 90+% accuracy for mild cognitive impairment, and 86, and in some data sets, 88% accuracy for detecting cognitively unimpaired groups. And that speaks to the validity, but also the utility of our digital assessment of cognition, or DAC cognitive battery, for really streamlining the neuropsychology workflow, but also in terms of life sciences, streamlining the targeting of enrollment, meaning identifying patients who not just have cognitive impairment, but they have the right amount of cognitive dysfunction or cognitive function, depending on the goal of the study, as well as the presence or absence of functional impairment, which differentiates patients with dementia and mild cognitive impairment.
So, one question comes to mind, again while researching, and plus this is kind of becoming a trend right now. I'm pretty sure you might have heard about this a lot. So there is a lot of AI getting involved. Artificial intelligence is getting involved. AI ML basically getting involved in the various functions and various aspects of healthcare system, and within the pharmaceutical industry also. So. How, as a company, you're leveraging AI in your cognitive or brain health platforms, basically. Are you, the first part of question is, are you using AI, and if yes, how?
The answer is definitely yes. The DNA of our company started, in fact, with artificial intelligence and machine learning, and all of our digital cognitive assessments leverage AI and ML models to achieve the highest possible levels of sensitivity and accuracy. When it comes to engaging and leveraging our AI tools in the life sciences space, we can look at multiple points at which our brain health platform can really help pharma and other medical devices and other life sciences companies. It can start from the study design, using our AI-based tools to, in fact, help design the study, both in terms of defining primary and secondary endpoints, targeting the right kind of population, participant recruitment, optimizing the participant recruitment and enrollment, reducing those screen failure rates, which can be really costly. You might know that it can cost tens of thousands of dollars to really successfully enroll even just a single patient that meets all the inclusion and exclusion criteria for a typical AD clinical trial. And then all the way down to capturing the treatment benefits, for example, that the study wants to see. If they want to evaluate the potential safety effects of their medication or intervention, it doesn't even have to be necessarily a neurological trial. It can be any medication or intervention that they can use our tools to make sure that their medication or intervention does not have deleterious effects on the central nervous system. They can use our tools for that. And finally, we have tools that really enable the patient's voice and personal priorities in terms of their brain health to be integrated into the outcome of clinical trials, which has been one of the recent and most important recommendations of the FDA. Because some of the scales that are traditionally used in clinical trials might show some statistical significance, but does it make a meaningful difference in that individual patients is not always clear. And we have tools that really capture the patient's individual or the participants' individual priorities in terms of their brain health, and then monitor those longitudinally to see if, for example, their confidence in those areas of their lives that are most important to them are being improved by that intervention. So I would say beyond trial recruitment and retention, we can also help them really enhance the objectivity, scalability, and reach of their studies or trials while maintaining all the robust data integrity that you expect from a world-class company. And we think really the use of our digital platform and assessment is one of the most practical, feasible, and economical ways that can really streamline the process of clinical trials from beginning to the end.
Then, yeah, yeah, definitely, I agree with you. This kind of cognitive assessment technique would make clinical trials faster also, and time saving, so money saving, and adds benefits to the pharma companies as well as to the patients for sure. So I think I don't have more questions. I would love to maybe have another chat with you after the ADPD conference, or any other conference afterwards. And so yeah, thank you so much for your time, and for being so patient, and telling us all about from digital biomarkers to what Linus does, and the papers which you are presenting, and the presentations, and on so and so forth about the research. So it was really eye opening, and I learned a lot. So probably I'm pretty sure others will also. So thank you so much for your time. It was great talking to you. Have a wonderful conference, and let's be in touch, and catch up once again.
Thank you so much, Himanshu. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you.